Hi, I'm Shelley Lewin, the relationship architect, and I'm here at my book launch for Uncomplicated Love, which is the accumulated wisdom of thousands of hours working as a professional relationship coach and couple counselor, helping clients and facilitating them to find their solutions from their relationship challenges, as well as my own experience and wisdom from being married for 20 years. So if you are looking to uncomplicate even your most complicated relationship, please buy this book now.
So, good morning to all of you, and thank you for joining us on this chilly, wintry. I'm from Joburg, so it's a bit confusing whether it's winter or summer, but I'm sure most of you would rather be at home cuddling with your partners right now than at a book launch on a chilly Sunday morning. But I think that's probably exactly why we are here, is to learn a little bit more about uncomplicated love and to celebrate uncomplicated love. So that was a joke about the... Maybe I'm projecting.
Single ladies.
Please meet Susi, my agent. So I'm privileged to be sitting here with Shelley and to have been invited to share this morning with you. And Shelley is the author of this very special, very important piece of work. And I say very important because as I read it, it took me on a roller coaster ride of thinking and feeling as I was going through it. And I think that's a roller coaster ride that many of us really need to go on and need to explore and experience. Also joining us this morning is over there in the death zone. We're sitting in the death zone, the two of us. We're this close to the end of our lives. It's Carl Wastie. Carl is, many of you will know Carl from KFM 94.5. Flash driver. Carl also, those of you who do wake up in the morning and watch TV instead of cuddling with your partners, you catch Carl on an espresso. And the link between Shelley and Carl is Shelley has been an expert contributor and specialist in relationships on both radio and TV over these years. And then next to me over here is Susi Astengo, who is the founder and the owner and the leader of a highly renowned high-performance coaching company called Coach Matching. Globally impactful, and Shelley and I both had the privilege of being associates of Susi's for I think it's about 13 or 14 years, and have worked very closely with Susi over these years as coaches impacting people's lives. So, and then there's you. This morning, we're just so you know what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be having an interactive conversation for about 40 minutes. We're going to be moving up and down the people on the stage, as well as maybe bouncing some stuff at you, because one thing I know for sure, we all have relationships, we all have people, we all have stuff going on, good, bad, and ugly, and so you're part of this conversation. You're also welcome at any time to pop your hand up or throw your voice in. It's not about us, it's about all of us. And then at the end of that 40 minutes or so, we're going to move to a Q&A for anything else that might be lingering or bubbling for any of you, and deal with those. But we're going to kick it off and start to talk to the clever people on the stage and then involve the clever people in the audience. So relationships are fundamental to every aspect of our lives. Relationships are happening either because of us or in spite of us, but they're happening all the time. We can't get away from them. And we all have them, we all want them, sometimes we don't want them. And this is where I want to bring it across to Shelley. So Shelley and I, another little interesting piece of information, we're at school together. It's another century, but we didn't have a relationship at school. We didn't know each other personally. And then Shelley went off after school and became a professional model and was gallivanting around all over the world in a bikini and doing her thing.
You noticed the bikini.
So let me rephrase. I noticed Shelley at school. Shelley didn't notice me. But the important part of this is that here we are decades later at the book launch of this incredible piece of work. And Shelley, how did we get here? And two questions, because something else that is always a feature for me and has been a feature since I became an author as well. People always say, and why should we believe you? So how did we get here, and why should we believe you?
Wow.
Thank you.
Loaded questions.
So thank you so much, Brad, for that really wonderful intro. And thank you to everybody for being here. I really do appreciate there's so many people here and colleagues, friends, and all my coaching colleagues. Thank you for being here today. So the question around why to believe me, well, let's just say I'd like to begin by saying I was a very unlikely candidate to be writing a book about relationships. I'm very clear about that. I was terrible at it. I had many complicated, painful, and unfulfilling relationships. However, I do know that I have an insatiable need to understand things and make sense of things. So for selfish reasons, I embarked on a journey to make sense of matters of the heart, because we tend to leave our minds behind when it comes to matters of the heart. This led to me wanting me to reinvent myself. And so I transitioned out of my modeling career into counseling, applied psychology, and then coaching. And so now, fast track 17 years, and I'm offering a perspective based on thousands of hours of working with individuals and couples in my capacity as a couple counselor and professional relationship coach. And in these thousands of hours, what I've done is I have had the privilege to listen to my clients' stories, their relationship challenges, and I have helped them to facilitate their way forward, to move forward, to find their own solutions. And in being that partner, being that thinking partner with them and for them, I've sort of identified patterns and trends that seem to be inherent in all relationships. And so I got very curious about that, and I thought, well, maybe I should be my own guinea pig and apply this to myself, into my own marriage. And so, fortunately or unfortunately for my husband Nate, who we've been married now for 20 years, and I applied those theories to my own relationship. And when I say unfortunately for him, because he was also the guinea pig, maybe without him realizing it. And I practiced these theories, and I thought, well, if it works for me and what I'm sharing with, in my personal and professional capacity is useful for people, maybe I should write a book about it. So it wasn't an easy, I had thought about this for many, many years, and those that know me way back will know that I feel like I've had a book inside of me for a very, very long time, but I just didn't feel like I had either the self-belief that what I had to say was worth sharing, and in many ways I probably still feel that imposter syndrome, but I do know that this is what I try to coach people to do, which is to put themselves out there and to take a stand for what you believe and to be of service. So the way that I'm hoping to be of service is to elevate the health and quality of people's relationships in the world. And this is my one small way of doing that. So my book is really about that. And I'm hoping, my best hope is that the people that get to read this will find something that is useful for them personally and or in their relationship, so that they can build a thriving relationship for themselves. So does that answer your question, Brad?
And sure. I need to now carry on.
Yeah.
So that was a thud, as you can see. But I think it takes that thud to get us here. The thing that stands out is the thousands of hours and the stories. And I think that's where the magic lies in. It's that access to other people. Because we've only got a limited lens, a limited amount of what goes on in our own heads. And for me, as I read the book, that's what stood out, was where this all came from and those stories. Another word that stood out that you mentioned now is health. We all have relationships. The quality of those determines the health of the relationship, very often the health of us. So thank you for that. Carl, hi. You read the book. What stood out for you? What made you think? What made you feel?
What stood out for me is the post-its I put in here. To start. But as I walked out of this lift over here, I saw Nate, and I saw the fear in Nate's eyes. And I wanted to just drop so many references to Titanic for him. I really wanted to. And the reality is, I think that the truth in the stories as you read the book, because you're going to love the perspectives in the beginning, is that you were swinging for the fence, my friend. You were reaching for the top shelf. And I think that's the greatest thing about this book, is that those things are possible when you are able to do a bit of self-assessment and you are able to actually be vulnerable. And what stood out for me is the fact that you read these books all the time. You read these things about the theories about what you need to do is just look at yourself in the mirror and believe that you are a good person. But nobody ever gives you practical, real-life connections and real-life stories that actually illustrate the way things play out for you. So what stood out is the practicality. I mean, this is literally a step-by-step guide to understanding not only the relationship side, but also the love for yourself, which I loved. And while that is almost a trailer for you to actually go grab this book and read it, but what I enjoyed is the end of the book is filled with barriers and breakthroughs. And I think when you're reading that particular section, I'm not sure if any of you, I'm sure this is a room full of coaches, so you love reality TV, don't lie to me, because they are case studies for psychological analysis, trust me. I don't know, you my man. That's what it sounds like, reality TV. So you'd read these things, but now you've got a book that actually gives you a bit of analysis, gives you a bit of a breakthrough as to how certain relationships in those little spaces are like. So while I enjoyed the stories, Shelley, it felt like I was part of a reality TV show, which is great, because like, oh my word, what happened next? What happened next? I need to turn the page. But there was also the breakthrough. And I think the breakthroughs were profound, because the breakthroughs were embedded in real conversations that people have had with you and the real people who were coached by you. So my thing that stood out for me is that there's a lot of care in this book, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of truth, Nate, a lot of, sorry, there was room on the door for you, like Jack. But what I thoroughly enjoyed is it's the practicality. It's the fact that I can go back to a story and apply it to a moment in my life that I've had in a relationship and say, oh my word, I was a douche. Let's actually relook at this and go do a self-assessment and go do real reflections that you can go back to in the book. There's space for it, and actually really always go back and assess a bit. So I honestly want to thank Shelley for what is the 5-year service plan of self and relationship. Because I think everybody, your car is a bookie, it's in your cubby hole, this one's going to be in mine. Thank you, Shelley.
So the post-it notes, are those all of the I was a douche moments?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all of them. I was like, why do you do that? Just, were you narcissist? What's going on? But it's actually, there are a lot of things that you pick. When you read this book, you'll have post-its too, because you want to go back to things, and I think that's the most powerful thing, Brad, is that you want to go and recheck, relook, reassess, which is a good thing. We don't do it often, because sometimes we think we are perfect lovers, perfect people in relationships, but here's the reality that you need, and it's going to make you better.
And now you all know, as you work your way through the book, it's really important to try different voices and different facial expressions so that there are other people in this journey with you.
I read it alone. Okay. I had a Dr. Phil voice. You need to understand that. Yeah, it was wonderful. You have to make it exciting for you.
I think there might be an app that can help you with that. So, thank you, Carl. So, Susi, as the, I introduced you as the owner of Coach Matching, and I think there's an important contextualization around that, is out of the thousands of people I've had the privilege to experience over the years, with Susi being who she is and what she does, her insight into how humans function is profound, probably more so than anybody I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with, working with, sometimes being put in my place by. So as you read this book on relationships, with everything you know about people and how we function, what stood out for you? What made you think? What made you feel?
Thank you. My goodness, no pressure then. Coming after professional speakers and models and a professional speaker here, I'm feeling rather intimidated. So I think what stood out for me was the fact that I've known Shelley since she made that transition from international model into counsellor and into relationship coach. And when I went through my divorce, the first person I phoned was Shelley, because I think one of the things that I love and trust about her is that she is unbelievably authentic and honest. And sometimes it's raw, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's been such a privilege to watch Shelley grow into the partner she is today, the professional that she is today, and also to have had the privilege of your guidance and support. So I think what stood out for me is that there's lots of things in this book that coaches are very, very comfortable with and very familiar with. But it's the humanity in the book and the realness and the authenticity in the book that really struck me. Yeah, very much struck me. And I love the opening. For those of you, when you start reading this book, the opening, Nate, you really were punching above your weight. But you got the girl in the end. You got the girl in the end. And I think what's so wonderful about it is that he got the girl in the end by doing the things that Shelley talks about in this book. Yeah, he showed up as a quality partner, but he also showed up as a quality human being. And that really struck me when I was reading through this. And you can see there are many post-it notes in here and things that I'm going to be going back to. And, oh, God, moments. Yes, I was that person. Yes, I did those things. But what's incredible about it is that there are so many practical exercises and great questions, really great questions throughout the book that make you stop and think and hopefully be better next time.
Thank you, Susie. Again, the wheels start to turn. So while I was reading through the book, we've all burnt a few post-it notes here, and we'll burn some more. There were a couple of things that stood out for me. This morning I was having a conversation with somebody, and I said to her, I'm going to moderate this book launch, and it's about relationships and love and what. And she said to me, what stood out for you as you were reading? And I said, there was a section that got me to think about where am I in this equation. And it's the chapter on co-creating a resilient love. And that big word is co-creating. And jokingly, in this WhatsApp conversation this morning, I said to the person I was messaging, I said to her, it kind of got me to wonder, is it me or is it them? And then my next message was, no, it's always them. And, I mean, I was being facetious-ish. And her response to me very bitingly was, it's both, always. I was like, alrighty. I mean, I was playing around. But there are 3 points in this particular piece of writing that stood out, and it is the recipe around co-creating a resilient love. And the first part was to identify a compatible partner. And that in itself is, what the hell is a compatible partner? That's where my mind went, is I think I know what a compatible partner is for me, but maybe the way I'm identifying is completely wrong, which means I stand a very small chance of it being successful, I and us. What does me being a compatible partner look like was the next thing that came up for me. So already here I'm in the quicksand going, what on earth do I do here? But Shelley doesn't leave it there. She moves into question number 2, or comment number 2, that not everybody is naturally ready, vulnerable and available for intimacy. So now already we don't know if we're compatible. Now we don't know if we're ready. And then the third part was the clanger. And it was about being a quality partner. So you can have a quality partnership is a practice. It is a practice. It is a thing that is ongoing, that you are consistently getting better and better and better at. And that's how complicated this thing is, that we often take so much for granted. So that stood out for me, particularly the thing about it being a practice. Because I think a lot of us come to relationships kind of, okay, the winning or the success is finding the relationship. Nah, the success is being amazing together in the relationship. And that was a big insight for me, because I think a lot of people forget that it happens after the relationship has started, not necessarily before. And so the book stood out for me as something that really is a powerful piece of writing for before, during, and after. I'm sitting here after a relationship, before the next one. Sounds terrible, but yeah, that's how it is. That's reality. So the learning matters always, and how we think about these things matters always. So Shelley, sorry, Carl. No,
Hi.
Shelley, you've had your turn already. We'll come back to you. Carl, you gave us some food for thought in round 1.
Yeah.
Give us some more.
Well, you are my spirit animal. That's exactly the way the post-it was for me, is that the concept of compatibility is an art. So what I thought in that moment is that compatibility, to my traditional understanding, and you'll see this when you read this, I really hope that you do. I was also brought in as one of the infomercial guys. Uncomplicated Love, a step-by-step guide for building thriving relationships, available at exclusive books. Anyway, as I was saying, so thank you, you're welcome. That's it. There we go. Checks in the mail, hopefully. Now, here's the thing. Compatibility as an art was the first section over there. And when I think about compatibility, my traditional understanding was always just, you're going to find somebody, Carl, that's going to be as short as you, as pretty as you. I'm kidding, I'm joking, but you have this idea of what compatibility is. And it's kind of like it's a gambling game. You're not going to know when you meet somebody, you swipe right to whatever you're going to do, you're going to meet that person, or you're going to meet Brad, who is ready for his next relationship. And, you're going to only venture into this compatibility is once you have the conversations and the assessments. But compatibility is an art was intriguing to me. And maybe, Shelley, you can answer this for us. But art denotes that you have a canvas in front of you and you have all the colors available. And you can paint what you need to paint, which tells me that you have a bit of control over what compatibility looks like. And that intrigued me because I've always known art as somebody who's done some study into history of art. There was always the person wanted to build something, throw something on the canvas, and then create something, okay? Compatibility was never something that I thought would actually be an art, because I felt like that was something that you kind of, hopefully, the 3-prong plug fits the 3 prongs available, or the 2-prong plug, and you have a 3-prong fitting, it's not going to work. So can you help me understand the concept? I'm going to say just the theory that compatibility is an art. Because if it is in our control in some ways, then maybe, as you'll definitely read through here, what did you mean by that, if you don't mind me asking?
Great. Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
So one of the key themes of the book is that in order to build resilient love, there are 3 dimensions. So it's an art, a science, and a practice. So the art is compatibility. The science is your attachment style. And the practice is showing up as a team player and being a quality partner. So I'm going to highlight the piece that you mentioned about compatibility. And the way that I would describe this is that if you think about the art of combining any 2 things, so when you're combining food and wine, when you're combining two colors or 2 voices to create music, music happens between the notes.
Yeah.
And if you were to have 2 singers joined together in a duo or a duet, each singer really needs to understand their tone, the quality of their voice. They need to be able to have a decent singing voice in order to be able to match themselves with another person to create a beautiful duet. And if you don't know what your voice is like and what the tone and quality and the essence or the elements of that voice is, how will you be able to match yourself and create music with another person? So there's a piece which is around really knowing yourself, understanding yourself, and knowing what do you need to be at peace in the world? What do you need to thrive, to be a fulfilled, purposeful, driven, wholehearted person, and who is going to be a good fit and a good match for that? So the reason I say that it's an art is because dating is kind of like love's laboratory. You're going to meet a lot of people as you go, and when you're meeting people, the idea is not to, I hope they like me, I hope they like me. That's the last thing that you should be thinking about. What you should be thinking is, can I be myself with this person? Can I show up and be my full, authentic self and they will allow me to become the best version of myself. So based on who I am, what I want to achieve for myself in my life, where I'm going, the life I imagine and envision for myself, that I can just be myself, and that person is going to augment that to make that a reality, and you will do that for them. So it's co-created. And coming back to this idea that if you are in a dance as well, whether it's two people in a dance, two people singing, you have to know as the dancer or the singer, how skilled am I? You know, so I can't show up as a terrible singer or a terrible dancer and be paired with someone who's a very good dancer or a very good singer and think, it's fine, you can carry me. You're going to be standing on their toes the whole way. Yeah. So there's an element of you becoming also your own skilled team player and becoming a quality partner. There's an element of that, which is the practices.
Yes.
But the art is to find somebody that can allow you to be yourself. And that's what quality... And so there's a chemistry piece, which is sure you want to have chemistry and feel physical attraction. But there's also everything else that goes into you living and expressing yourself and being who you want to be in the world that will make you a good fit or not. So I talk about we are going to be more or less aligned with people. And that's what your job is, to figure out who are you going to be more aligned with and who are you going to be less aligned with. And that's an art, really.
I can feel that. Thank you. Thank you for answering.
Okay.
Shelley, now you've got the wheels turning.
Big time.
I'm curious, just by a show of hands, whom of you think you're good dancers / good partners? You're going to sell a lot of books today.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we got some hands going up. Whom of you think you might believe you're good partners, but might also be delusional? Okay, a lot of hands are going up. If we asked your partners, are you good partners? Whom of your partners would say you're a good partner? 100%. So there's that delusion thing again. But Shelley, my question is, what if you are both good dancers, but one of you is a tango specialist and the other one is a ballerina?
Well, do you want to be learning tango, and is your partner willing to learn your dance, you know? So it's not about just saying this is who I am and, you know, you must fit in with who I am. That's part of the partnership piece. So there's an element that you're going to grow together, that you are actually molded by the other person. But if you have to sacrifice your dignity, your self-respect, who you are, in order to fit in and make the relationship work, it'll work temporarily. If you have to sacrifice a part of yourself and you can't be who you want to be in the world, your authentic self, and it has been shown that there are two top emotional needs of human beings. The one is we need attachment, we need to be in relationship, we need a sense of belonging. So that's one emotional driver. But another emotional driver is that we need to be and grow into self-actualization, self-realization, be who you were destined and born to be in the world. And so what happens is that when you're a child, the first thing that happens is that you are focusing on your need for attachment so that you have a caregiver who's taking care of you. And when you become an adult, the focus is very much around, do I have to still sacrifice who I want to be in the world? Do I have to sacrifice my authenticity in order to stay in this attachment? And that's why many people stay in this attachment, because they have this need to be in relationship, and they will, you know, they will let go of their need to be themselves in order to be in the relationship. And I'm saying that proper compatibility is that you get both.
I didn't expect to come here intending to now go home and start ballet lessons, but thank you for that. Spot on. Brilliant, brilliant. Susi, I know you've got more to share with us.
Oh, I've got so much more. So much more. I think one of the things that struck me when I first met Shelley and first started working with her, and it's throughout the entirety of this book, is the need for being able to be vulnerable to achieve intimacy. And, we've been talking somewhat theoretically about, what a good relationship looks like. But I'm going to get really honest. Because when I first met Shelley, I'd gone through a divorce, and I was thinking, how could I have possibly got it so badly wrong? Brad introduced me as somebody who is an expert in human behavior. I'm supposed to be this extremely self-actualized, self-aware human being, and yet here I am finding myself going through an unpleasant, not messy, but an unpleasant divorce with my self-esteem in the toilet, and thinking, how could I have made so many mistakes? I waited, I tried, I did all the deliberate dating, I had my list, and yet I still ended up here. And I think it comes back to what you're talking about around the child and the child's need for attachment. And all of us have our inner child, and that inner child sometimes gets very badly in the way. So I know that my own history that I explored with Shelley was that my mother wasn't present, so I didn't have that unconditional love. And I was talking to a very dear friend of mine a couple of weeks ago who said to me, Susie, you don't have to work to be loved. You are lovable just as you are. But in that moment, when you are in need of being vulnerable, because that's intellectually the right thing to do, can you practically hold a space for yourself to be able to do it? Because I certainly know that that's something that I've struggled with, and I'm sure that there are many people in the audience who've struggled with it as well. And you silence that little voice that says, I really should be saying I don't like that, or this doesn't work for me. But you sacrifice in that moment because of the hormones, because of the compatibility, because of the fun, because you're in a group and everybody within that group, it's all about the couples and we're all together in this. We all make those little sacrifices on a day-to-day basis. So I think the thing is around, how do you stay true to yourself, stay authentic, stay real, and build that intimacy with another human being when actually you're frightened. You're frightened of loss, which is, I think, what all of us, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to leave me? Because my little inner child says, actually, you need to be a good girl to be loved.
Did you want to say something to that?
Did you want to say something?
What's coming through very clearly, this is complicated, which is why we have the encyclopedia of uncomplication. It's clear this is complicated. Yeah. In my book, I created a character called Ralph. Ralph, R-A-L-P-H, stands for refusing to allow learning and progress to happen. And it's written about the workplace, but it's a life thing. What Shelley did really, really well was enjoyed Ralph and created Olga in her book. And Olga is about being open to learning and growth always, O-L-G-A. And I think that stood out for me because if you are somebody who's not constantly and consistently open to learning and growth, this is going to be painful because you're just banging our heads against a wall the whole time. And, I was sharing with Shelley when we were preparing for the event, I was sharing some experiences I've had as a single guy. That's coming up way too much here. But hey, the after and the before phase. So, but what was coming through is I shared the disappointment I'd had in recent dating pursuits and short relationships, and the two more recent ones, and here I'm being vulnerable, were both of the amazing women that I met, both couldn't stay in the space because of the fear of the narrative, good things don't last, and they were waiting for me to behave like the other two guys that broke their hearts, and living in this trapped headspace. And I'm a skilled coach. Like, I could go into coach mode and fix that, but I don't want to coach where I'm dating and having a relationship. I can support and hold the space for somebody, But I can't do that if somebody's not open to learning and growth. And my provocation is, how many of you are sitting in a space wanting something to happen, because they both wanted love and romance. And as I said, two incredible women. But there's nothing I could do there because of the lack of openness, because of the prison of what was going on in the mind. I think that's where so much work has to happen. So Shelley, if this book was written...
Well, she answered my question first.
Oh, sorry, is there actually a question?
Oh, no. So, well,
okay.
Susie was asking me about the vulnerability.
Oh, okay, go for
Yes.
it.
Yeah, and it speaks actually to what you've mentioned as well, Brad, which is that, so my sense is that people are complicated, relationships are not. Okay, and what I mean by that is that we are all, complex human beings who've had trauma in small t ways or big T, capital T ways. And what happens is that we forget that we are powerful and we forget that we are lovable. And what happens is we are seeking that love externally to let us know that you are lovable, you are worthy, you are special, and instead of having unconditional love for ourselves. And that is really what the essence and the foundation is for having healthy relationships, is so you have unconditional love for yourself, which is that I will be fine if I'm on my own. I will be fine. I got this. And if it doesn't work between us, that's okay. I'll be fine. I can take care of me. I'm okay in the world, and that I've got my own back. And I think that, if you love yourself unconditionally, then that's what gives you the strength and the courage to walk away when it isn't going well. And when it isn't going well, and maybe a bit of the end of the book, I'm saying if you can't thrive, then you should be leaving. And I'm not saying that people should stay in relationships for 20, 30, 40 years. I don't believe that. I don't believe that longevity determines the health of a relationship. But the health of a relationship is based on how you are thriving, both individually, that both of you are able to be who you want to be in the world, and you are supporting, encouraging, and challenging each other to become the best version of yourself. And if you aren't supporting, challenging, and encouraging each other, and you're limiting each other or keeping each other small, then that's not the relationship for you, and that's okay. That's what you learned. That was a useful learning experience for you. It wasn't a failure. We really need to stop defining relationships that end as failures. It's not a failure. Fail is just data that you didn't want, that you now get. It's an iterative process. You now get to learn what you learned from that experience and then step into the next experience and say, what did I take away from that experience that I can do differently next time? And to not have stories that makes me unlovable, or that people always leave me, or that I get abandoned. Those are just stories and narratives that are keeping you stuck. And so I would say that we need to love ourselves unconditionally, and that will allow you to be vulnerable in relationships, because then you won't mind, that you've got your own back and you'll be fine and safe.
Great answer. I often say it's easier to get out of a relationship than it is to get out of an MTN account. But people don't, because of what you've just described.
Yeah.
So Shelley, before we invite the audience or our guests, our friends, to share any thoughts or questions they might be having, the last thing I want to ask you is, if this book was written by a therapist, how would it be different? What is the difference between your lens from a coaching perspective as a specialist coach compared to what a therapist might be doing here?
Thanks, Brad. So I think that what many people don't necessarily realize about the coaching profession is that when we have coaching conversations, the focus is on the future, your desired future, your preferred future. That what is the reality that you would prefer to have, And if this is where you are now and this is where you want to get to, what is the change that needs to happen to get you to move forward? So coaching is a methodology for change. And so the presumption in this book is that there are some things that you can change in order to create and build a resilient love and a resilient relationship. And I think that if you were a therapist, you would spend a lot of time exploring the problem and the past. So what happened, you would explore in great detail, the inner workings of your mind and your childhood, and looking at the past and problems. And as a coach, we're more interested in what did you make that mean? So if you did have something terrible happen to you, how did you convert, what was the story that you told yourself about that? Because that story has now become a narrative for you, and coaching is around understanding the narratives that you carry, that are the stories you tell yourself, about your life, and either those stories keep you stuck and limited, or they are stories that allow you to empower yourself to step forward and to become, fully self-expressed in the world. And so it is different because it's very practical and it's very much around self-reflection. And through each section, I'm asking you to take a look and to reflect what happened for you. What is the story that you're telling yourself? What is the narrative? What do you believe to be true? Based on your current reality, what must you believe to be true in order for this to be happening? And so wherever you feel stuck or blocked or there's no flow, I can assure you have a narrative and a limiting belief. Wherever you have flow in your life, where things are going well, then your narratives are great, they're empowered, and keep doing more of that. And so that's probably the biggest difference between a book written by a coach versus a therapist.
And the two work interconnectedly.
Sure.
It's really important to know when do you need to be unpacking what came before.
Thank you for adding
and
that.
when do you need to be moving into committed experimentation, because we're always experimenting of how do I move forward and what comes next. Cool, let's see what's going on for you. Any questions anyone wants to ask? Any thoughts or comments or any contributions to share? Got a hand over there.
Morning, Shelley. And first off, congratulations. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, and I don't know if the book does cover it, but for those of us who are in the coaching profession, what I'm interested in is increasingly we are coaching millennials and Gen Zs, and Susi, Shelley, and I are all parents of almost grown children. And my observation is they're finding it even more challenging to do relationship than Gen Xers did, and it's challenging enough for us. So I'm curious about any observations, Shelley, or anything that you're seeing in your work that helps those who are doing social media relationships to get vulnerable, to get connected, and how they navigate that.
Sure, great question. Thank you. So, one of the things that concerns me about the millennials, the Gen Zs that are spending so much time on social media is this, I'm going to use the word AI, which for me doesn't stand for artificial intelligence, but stands for artificial intimacy. And artificial intimacy is that you are not in a relationship with someone unless you are sitting face to face, looking in their eyes, feeling their energy, having a conversation in person. And so if it's not in person where you can feel, touch, explore, gaze into that person's eyes, hold their hand, and be in person and real, it's artificial intimacy. And I don't know that I would encourage parents to try and spend as much time sitting, talking, and the skill of relating, human to human. And that, to me, is probably the biggest challenge that these youngsters will face, is because they're not spending enough time in person with each other. And so the more that they can do that, looking at each other and being able to hold the space for each other in person rather than just words. You know, communication is 93% non-verbal. So the words, 7% of what's going on behind a screen. And, you know, just as an example, I have worked with Brad now. We have been having, we're in a coaching circle together, and we have been meeting for years online. And I thought that obviously I have a sense of Brad, but yesterday was the first time that we met in person. And I cannot tell you the difference that has made for me. Who I thought and had a sense, it's very, very different when you meet people in person, and to get a sense of that person and to feel the energy. You know, you have receivers and receptors that are picking up on all sorts of things that you weren't even aware of, that you will only notice when you're in person with a person. So that would be, if that answers the question. Thank you.
Make a comment.
Yes.
And they call it social media.
Yes.
Nothing could be more asocial.
Correct. It's not social, absolutely. I am aware of the time, so what I would like to do, if I can, just read a piece for you that speaks to this unconditional love. So this piece that I'd like to read for you is "Let's Build Your Steps." So, and this is what I'd like to share with you today. Whichever path led you here, you are taking your life and your relationships into your own hands in order to live with greater clarity, passion, and purpose. The information in these pages will help you to do that. I support and encourage people to reconnect with their personal power. If things are not going well, consider that you had the power to create that. All of those things which you now don't want, you certainly have the power to create the things you do want. Despite any trauma that may have happened to you, you have everything you need to live a life infused with love, joy, peace, contentment, wonder, and awe. You have your very own GPS. That is a greater personal self, which communicates to you through your intuition and emotions. Your GPS guides you to the people, places, and experiences that support your thriving, which is why your relationship with yourself is primary. We need to rely on other parts of ourselves beyond the logical and conscious mind to be able to navigate more clearly when we are aligned or not aligned with someone or something. It is a contributor to your logical discernment. You need to be using your own GPS as well as your conscious mind to avoid going off course and getting lost, or worse, losing yourself in a relationship. And that's where I'd like to close out.
Thank you, Shelley.
Wow.
So if that got your attention, there are 60,000 more words that you want to get up close and intimate with. We are going to do a book giveaway. Where is Linda?
Oh.
Who's got the goodies?
Yes. So Ali from Nalu Wines is here. She's shared the bubbles with you here today. I'd love for you to stay and have a glass of bubbles, the Prosecco. And she is giving a book away. And so if you wrote your name down on the paper as you arrived, there would have been a book giveaway. How many numbers? Okay, so I'm going to ask for Brad. There's 27 names on the list. Do you want to do you have the list so that you can give me a number between 1 and 27?
So I'm curious, 27, what we heard was some of you were saying, no, I've got the book. We're family, we're friends, I've got it, I don't need it. But you know people who need it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you didn't put your name down, that opportunity is gone, but think about the people you know who need it. A number between 1 and 27.
Yes.
Number 10.
Okay. So the book who's going to get the giveaway is Renee Watson. Yay!
Well done, Renee. Well done, Renee.
Great. So Renee will give you the book afterwards.
And I am cheekily punting, but books are now available for purchase. Shelley is obviously here to sign them. you know the value of an author-signed book on the day of launch.
Absolutely.
And so grab them, think about the people you know. Relationships are what make or break our happiness in so many areas of our lives. And yeah, as Shelley said, you're welcome to join us for Prosecco, bubbles, and mimosas. Are they mimosas?
Yes, there's mimosas.
And I want to close just by reading a little something that's in the front of the books. And it's by Rumi. It says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. From myself, and I know from Shelley, Susi, and Carl, that we wish for you all abundant and uncomplicated love. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you're all here. So much appreciation and delight to share the stage with these precious people and to have you all here. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful Sunday, everybody.